So delves are, I hope they're going to be really good. I always hope that any feature is going to be really good. But I get the same feeling about delves as I did with Torghast and Island Expeditions and Warfronts, where it's like, it's one of those things that they give you the very, very rough outline or idea of it, and you go, well, that sounds like a great idea. But then the more you hear about it and the more specifics you hear about it, the less interesting it becomes and the less you like the idea. And I feel like with delves, the problem is going to be that there will be an expectation, like with scenarios or Warfronts or Island Expeditions, there'll be an expectation of victory to the extent where if you don't win, it's like toxic, make an enemy for life with someone level problem. And that's an issue, isn't it? I think the intent with delves are different though, because they want them to be evergreen. No, that's not the point I'm making. The issue I'm bringing up with Torghast and Iron Expeditions and Warfronts is not the expansion specificness of them. It's the you will win this-ness of them. Particularly with Warfronts and Island Expeditions, and the idea that because things have to have a way that they actually work, and because things have to have loot rules, and because things have to have actual, structure, and things have to become way more specific than some vague idea that sounded really cool when they just said it and they didn't have to actually make it. That's why I feel like that about delves. And tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that you like the idea of delves now that you've heard a few specifics about them, more or less than you did when you just heard the idea. Like, most people would have heard the idea and gone, awesome idea. And then the more they hear about it, the less excitement they feel for it. Just like they did with Island Expeditions, just like they did with Torghast, just like they did with Warfronts. There's very few people, there will be people, but there'll be very few people, I think, who have liked the idea more the more specifics they've heard. And I don't think that's a fault of delves or the specifics that exist for delves. I think that's just like a natural human reaction. Oh, you like them more? Well, D-Wolf, like I say, there's always one. I'm a huge fan of the idea of delves, definitely, and I really hope they're going to be good, but I just don't know if they will be. But it's so hard to hit the happy medium with there, because you're talking about a level of play which is kind of like fundamentally, automatically, in terms of difficulty and expectation, below, say, Mythic Plus Dungeons, below, say, raiding, right? So you can't make it as challenging as that. And if you don't, it becomes an auto-win thing. So, people don't want something where they're going to be wiping loads. People don't want something where they're going to be or maybe they do. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm underestimating the player base here. Maybe open world delvers will be fine with having to try the same delve 3 or 4 times, 5 times before they beat it. Maybe I'm underestimating the community here. Wasn't Mage Tower quite hard? Yeah, but then the thing about Mage Tower was it wasn't there as an alternative to raiding. It wasn't there as an alternative to doing Mythic Plus. Delves is. So actually, I would wager that the people that actually enjoyed Mage Tower the most were probably higher level players that also enjoy raiding and Mythic Plus, or if not higher level players, at least mid-level players. Delves is very specifically aimed at world content players who don't raid, who don't do Mythic Plus, and it's aimed to be a viable alternative, solo alternative. So okay, if you're getting heroic level raid gear from it, we've got 30 odd pulls on Firak right now. Are we saying that the expectation is that you fail a delve 30 times before you complete it? Is that what we're asking? And it's a genuine question. I'm not being rhetorical here. It's a genuine question. Would people be okay with that? Would you be okay with failing a delve 30 times before you completed it and getting your reward? Are you failing 30 plus times because you personally failed? Well, it's solo content, Veronica. Yeah. So in the context I'm talking about it, yeah. Tally delves would be gated for gear in the same manner that Mythic Plus would be. Explain. What do you mean? It's aimed at me. I do LFR to see the story. I'm really looking forward to delves. I don't think there's going to be much story in the delves, though. Maybe 5 to 10 times. Optional difficult settings like Proving Grounds would work. Yeah, exactly. But like I'm talking about at the level where it's an alternative to, heroic raiding. At the level, yeah, I know there are different difficulty levels and stuff. Like I know that. I'm talking about it in the context where it's at the level where it is a viable alternative to heroic, because there is a level of gear that you can get from delves that is heroic level gear, is what we've been told. So is the expectation for failure going to be as high as it is for heroic level for heroic raiding? It kind of has to be, right? Because otherwise you're forcing heroic raiders to do it. I mean, you probably are anyway, to be honest. I doubt that the average player will be able to do delves to that level, right? Yeah, but like delves aren't for the average player. Delves are for the solo player. And skill levels of solo players, believe it or not, are wildly variable. Just because someone's a solo player doesn't mean they're a trash player. You get some incredibly talented solo players, and maybe they used to raid at a high level or used to Mythic Plus at a high level and just can't anymore for various life reasons, right? But because someone is a solo player doesn't mean that they are a low level player. It means that they only have the time to play solo. I would assume horrific vision difficulty, where doing a max delve is difficult at the start, then it gets easier over the course of the season with gear. Sure, yeah. Delve.io when. Yeah. And yeah, of course, the skill level of raiders varies a lot as well. Exactly. And like I say, I'm not trying to start any arguments. I'm not trying to tell anyone that they're wrong. I'm actually genuinely asking questions. I actually genuinely am asking questions. I think a semi-solution is to make it endless, and your reward is based on how many levels you can survive. So Torghast, you want it to be Torghast. Yeah, a lot of people describing Torghast right now. So the issue with Torghast and that thing is that obviously there is a max level because that would be the one that the highest level loot is at, i.e. heroic loot. Okay, so that would be the highest level, the one where you get the heroic loot. Now, two things about that. One, it has to be on a lockout. There are 16 delves. If each one can potentially reward a piece of heroic level loot, there has to be a weekly lockout on that. In the same way that there has to be for raiding and for like, anything else. Because there has to be. Otherwise it would like just create the most degenerate behavior you can possibly imagine. And that would also be the top level you can go to, just like Torghast had a top level. So what do we do? Do we have that level open from the start? Or do you unlock a few levels a week like they did with Torghast, so like it's just not a good way of getting heroic level gear until much later in the season? No, because Torghast is designed that you must complete to get max reward. More like survival games that are popular right now. So you're saying that you shouldn't have to complete a delve to get the reward from it? I'm not being a dick. I'm genuinely asking. It sounds like that's what you're saying. Are you saying that you shouldn't have to complete a delve to get the reward from it? And here's the thing. If it does reward heroic level loot, you are making it mandatory for a lot of people. That's the problem, right? So the thing is, it's not the second you're rewarding heroic level loot, you are saying to heroic level raiders, which is a lot of players, you kind of have to do this. I would assume the heroic gear is only from the Vault weekly chests. I mean, same difference though, in terms of like making people do it. They would see it as mandatory. Yeah, totally. I would. Maybe the reward is not loot but cosmetics, but the reward is loot. That's the plan at the moment. And I don't know how Torghast is mandatory, and I don't know how you make delves not mandatory for people who aren't interested in them. What if you put it on the same vault line as Mythic Plus? mean, yeah, I mean, you could. That's not the craziest idea, but I think it's an idea that people would fucking hate without even being able to tell you why they would hate it. Because I think you're right. That might actually be a good idea. But regardless of that, I think people would hate it. But I think you might actually be on to it. Would feel like I think most players would hate it without really knowing why. And I think they'd probably be wrong to hate it as well. But I think they would. But that's the thing, right? I mean, no, so obviously, like, you know, you can get better rewards from Mythic Plus than you can from doing delves, you know, at the highest levels. But if they share a track, that would mean that it's not mandatory for people who aren't interested in doing it. Because you'd fill that track out with Mythic Plus just by doing Mythic Plus, and you could get better rewards in the track anyway. Actually, like, you know what? It's actually a good fucking idea. Like, it would decimate the Mythic Plus scene at, like, plus 16 and lower. Also means it's worthless for the people that do want to do it. Why, Ginger Bear? Why would it be worthless for... I'm assuming you mean, like, for people who want to do delves. Why would sharing a track with the Mythic Plus track and nothing else being different, why would that ruin it? If they're also doing some Mythic Plus. Yeah, but if they're also doing Mythic Plus, then they're not the people that delves is intended for. Like, delves is intended primarily for people who don't do Mythic Plus. Delves is intended primarily for people who want to play solo. So if they are also doing Mythic Plus, by definition, they're not the people that, like, delves are mostly aimed at. I don't know, man. I just want challenging evergreen solo content alongside my instant group content. Yeah, I agree. So do I. But how do you make that happen? You know? Like, it doesn't hurt to think of potential problems of things, because then you think of solutions. But you have to be able to identify the problems, otherwise you're never going to think of solutions. And I think one of the main issues we have as a community is we constantly identify the wrong problems, which is why we never come up with the right solutions. Newsflash, some of us like group and solo content. Yeah, exactly. This is a problem, Wonderwares. I also like group and solo content, right? But I don't want to feel obligated to do delves. I don't want to feel obligated to fill up my delve like track on my weekly vault, because otherwise I'm missing out on potentially three choices of heroic loot when I'm progressing in the raid. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that to be mandatory. I mean, a lot of people feel obligated to do Mythic Plus right now. Yeah, totally. But, like, you're giving me another thing that I'm going to feel obligated to do then. Yeah, so you feel like that with Mythic Plus anyway? Yeah, awesome. So now add another thing on top of that takes just as long. You're giving me 2 tracks that are obligated rather than just 1. Yeah, that sucks. Like, yeah, that's what you're doing. You're saying that's not a good defense. It's like, yes, I already feel obligated to do Mythic Plus, but also I enjoy it because it's group content and I enjoy group content, right? And I'd probably rather do Mythic Plus than delves, but now you're making me do Mythic Plus and delves. So what's the answer there? I don't understand why you would feel obligated to do it. Well, then, Bardic Gnome, you've obviously just never met a WoW player in your life, and there's not much I can do about that. Sorry. Why can't you just choose one? Because you would be if they both have different tracks. If they both have different tracks, then you are missing out on 3 choices of heroic gear if you don't do one. Okay? If I don't want to do Mythic Plus right now, I'm potentially missing out on 3 like options of heroic gear or mythic gear if I'm doing high level Mythic Pluses at the end of the week, which is okay, one thing. But if I don't feel like doing delves or Mythic Plus, I'm missing out on 6 choices. And it's not like I'm not satisfied because I've got 9 choices, okay? Half as much as I'm disappointed because I've missed out on 3 choices if I don't do them. Does that make sense? That's a psychological thing, right? If you fill out the entire thing, you're like, no, the vote is good. The vote is a net good. The vote is good. But like, make delve gear not work in Mythic Plus. Well, then you're definitely making me, in that case, it's like, I definitely have to do Mythic Plus and delve because I've only got like, all the gear I'm getting in delves, I can't even wear in fucking Mythic Plus. So I have to do Mythic Plus, otherwise I can't ever do Mythic Plus. Like, delve isn't an alternative in that case because I can't use the fucking gear in any other fucking content. So no, you're making it even more obligated in that case. Gear should be PvE gear. Well, I agree with that about PvE. Yeah. I honestly think I agree with the first suggestion. Genuinely, I honestly think the best solution is to have Delves and Mythic Plus share a track. Like, genuinely. Sorry, I think that's a great idea. I think it's a really good idea. Or not even Mythic Plus, it's dungeons, isn't it? So you got your dungeon track and Delves, and they share the same track. Because that way, I really can mix them up. That way, whether I'm doing a Mythic Plus or a Delve, I'm filling in the same track. You could make an argument for having it all on one track, sure. I like having Raid and Mythic Plus on a different track, but why not have all PvE? Yeah, you can definitely make an argument for that, yeah. But maybe you'd increase the amount of slots or something else, or increase the amount of things you have to do to fill out the slots, whatever. I'm sure there'd be alterations you'd have to make, but the idea of Delves and Mythic Plus sharing a track is one I'm actually kind of into, honestly. Now, obviously, you could still get higher level gear from doing higher level Mythic Plus, right? So, like, filling out your track with, like, how many do you have to do right now? Like 12? 8? Shit, I don't even know. Fuck my life. 8, right? So obviously, if you did like 8 plus 20s, your vault would be full of much better stuff than anything you could get from Delves. But if we're just talking about going up to heroic level, if that's your level, if that's what you're aiming for, then that wouldn't be a problem at all, right? What is the loot pool going to look like for Delves? World gear? I'm not sure. But we've been told it will go up to heroic level, which is like, I think, plus 16 level for a Mythic Plus. Correct me if I'm wrong. Might be plus 15. If they share a track, the devs have an incredible balancing act to make the levels match, but they already do, Hitchmeister. They already do. Like, if one is easier to do than the other, then players have, especially if it's the solo player thing, the expectation will be on players to do that. See, I don't raid. So what you're basically saying is if I do Mythic Plus and Delves, I'd only get 3 choices for doing both. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you would make, like, maybe you would then increase the amount of slots that you can unlock. If you're having 2 things on the same track, like I say, you would adapt the system to fit, right? So yeah, maybe the answer is you have more options. Yeah, maybe that's the option. And like maybe you could increase the raid slots to more as well. And like some of them would just have to be made up of lower level stuff, right? So there are 9 bosses in this raid, right? So at the moment you can get 3 slots by killing 7 bosses. Maybe the next slot is at 10 bosses. So if you complete the heroic raid and do a normal boss, you get 4 slots, but the 4th slot would only be normal level. I think that'd be fine. Just gives you the option to still get more, though. Maybe it would be a better choice overall. And I do think raiders should have more choices as well. Yeah, I think, call me old-fashioned, but you will never convince me that the best gear shouldn't only be available in raid. You'll never convince me. I'm all for having like 1 or 2 items which are like 5 item levels higher than anything else in the game or whatever that you can only get in a raid. You're never going to convince me that's a bad thing. And I can't tell you why I'm with you, Lumaday. I can't eloquate why, but that's how I feel. I think every content should have its own gear. I agree. However, one thing I would point out, Stills, is that I really, really like the fact that I can get tier in my dungeon track. When I really enjoy the fact that, even on my dungeon like options, when I go there on reset day, it might be tier from raid. I like that. I think that's a good thing. So I don't know where that puts me. It's an archaic elitist mentality that makes the game worse for 90% of players. Nope. It didn't make... Well, I disagree. It didn't make it worse for me when I wasn't raiding. My game was not made any worse by the fact that I couldn't get the best raid gear when I wasn't raiding. It made me want to raid, and it made me experience more of the game than I would have done otherwise, and I enjoy the game more as a result. Like, even when raiding just wasn't on the table at all, even when raiding was not an option at all, when it was like I thought I would never ever be able to do it for a million different reasons, I always looked up to it, and I still thought it was right they got the best gear then. So, you know, and I think that's an underappreciated thing. I think the aspirational side of WoW and WoW content is severely underrated. And I think that, you know, having stuff that only raiders can see and do isn't really a bad thing for most players. I think most of them see it as aspirational content. And I think that's a good thing. I think aspirational content is good. Personally, I don't think it's elitist. I think there's a way to be elitist about it, but I don't think its existence is elitist at all. I pay the same as a raider, though. Okay. So, like, I paid the same for my TV as anyone else who bought my TV. So if I choose to only watch one channel because that's what I want to do, does that make my TV shit? Like, I have to pay a Netflix subscription if I want to watch Netflix on my TV, but I paid the same as anyone else for my TV. Like, I mean, it's a game. It's a game where you achieve things, and I think, and like I say, no one is stopping you from raiding. Like, your life circumstances might and stuff do, but like at the end of the day, you can raid. You know, like if you really, really want to, you can raid. It might be harder for you than for other people to get, like, find a group and to find a raid and stuff like that, but you can. You can. Unless there's like some accessibility reason why you can't, and, you know, like maybe anxiety or something like that. But I mean, that's not really the game's. I want the game to be as accessible for you as possible, but like, if your thing is that I just can't play with other people, what are you supposed to do? Like, how's the game supposed to help you with that? It can't, can it? Beyond making it as user-friendly as possible. But that's the only thing I can think of that, you know, is an actual reason why people wouldn't. Yeah, grouping anxiety absolutely sucks. I have loads and loads of sympathy for it, but I don't think it's a good enough reason for group content to not exist. You know, like, it sucks for you, and I feel bad for you, and I want the game to be like as accessible for you as possible. But it's not a reason to not have group content. That some people have anxiety that doesn't let them do group content. You know? And it's not a reason to not have aspirational content either. Doing anything in game just for loot is not really playing the game for me. It's more about the experience. Oh yeah, but don't get me wrong. When I wasn't raiding, and it was never looked likely that I would raid, and I was looking at it as aspirational content, it was aspirational from an experience point of view as well as a reward point of view. I craved that amazing gear that I never thought I'd be able to get, but I also craved the experience. Because, like, you know, this is before LFR raiding or whatever. I'd watch videos of Ice Crown or something, and I'd see like 20, 30 people just fucking blasting a boss and all these spell effects going off and stuff, and it looked amazing. And I'd be like, holy shit, that looks so cool. Look how far their camera is zoomed out. Look how many fucking, like, people are pew-pewing that boss right now. Look how big that fucking boss is. Look how long he takes to die. You know? So people need to play the way other people tell them to. Gotcha. No. I'm not telling you how you should play the game at all. I'm not telling you how you should play the game. This is so confusing. This is so weird. Like, the argument you're making is that you should be able to get any gear from any way that you choose to play the game. And I think that's wrong. I don't think you should be able to get top tier raid gear from RP. But I think RP is a perfectly valid way to play the game. I don't think you should be able to get top tier raid gear from pet battles. But I think pet battles are a very, very valid way of playing the game. And if that's the only thing you like doing, I think that's brilliant. More power to you. I don't think you should be able to get top tier raid gear from playing the auction house. However, I think that's a perfectly valid way of playing the game. I'm not telling you how to play the game, but I do think it's right, personally, that some gear exists that you can only get in raid. And like I say, I can't really eloquate why, but that's how I feel. What about heroic level gear, Tally? What about heroic level gear? That's not top tier raid gear. So yeah, free for all, mate. That's what I say. I would say the balance of Vault is off at the moment. Heroic dungeons give you better gear than LFR. Seriously? That sucks. There should be group content, but there should be alternative, and raiders saying that all the best rewards should be locked behind raiding creates an elitist culture in game. But I was saying that when I was not a raider, Medieval, so what do you think about that? Was I right then because I wasn't a raider, but I'm wrong now because I do raid, even though it's not at Mythic? I'm still not a Mythic raider, right? I'm a heroic level raider. So, like, I still can't get the top level raid gear. I'm still on the outside of the thing that I'm advocating for. I'm not being elitist. So what do you think of me? Where do I stand in this argument then? I'm advocating for top level raiders being able to get like the top level gear, and me not being able to do that because I'm not a top level raider. So, like, who am I? Am I just a self-hating fucking like squeeb or something? The community would do well to leave behind the gatekeeping mentality too. If you have the gear but lack the skill to utilize it as effectively as a top level. Well, I don't know about that, but the difference is in time level, not the gear availability itself. I'm a bit confused by that comment, sorry. I'm not being a twat. I'm not trying to win or whatever. I just don't understand the comments, sorry. In Vault, LFR gives veteran track gear. Completing heroic dungeons gives you champion track gear. Oh, that is better. What is a squeeb? It's a word I just made up, and it's horrible. You don't want to be one. Yeah, but like, you know, I feel like aspirational content is great. I'm 100% in favor of aspirational content in game. Yeah. Because, you know, it's aspirational, and I think that's good. Catering to Mythic Raiders is a bad idea for any reason. Okay, but I don't see how that's catering to Mythic Raiders. Catering to Mythic Raiders, in my opinion, would be changing other elements of the game to make it easier for Mythic Raiders to do what they do. That's not what I'm advocating at all. I'm advocating simply for the existence of Mythic Raid and for it to have, you know, one or two items that you can't get just by doing Mythic Plus or something. You know? And like one or two items that are of an item level, maybe 3 or 5 like item levels higher. I'm not advocating for catering to Mythic Plus players. In fact, I'm glad to see that the game has done the opposite recently. I feel like a really good example of WoW catering less and less to Mythic Plus players would be LFR and normal and heroic opening up on the same week as Mythic. Like, I would say that is the opposite of catering to Mythic Plus, catering to Mythic Raiders. That is not what Mythic Raiders want. Fucking ruins the race to world first few days. Like, yeah, and I don't think WoW does cater to high level Mythic players, honestly. And the less it does, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I completely agree. But that doesn't mean I don't think there should be aspirational content. They are two different issues in my opinion. Why should someone get a medal for athletics if they competed in tennis? Nothing wrong with activity-specific rewards. Yeah, but like there is. I think it's good that Mythic Plus is a genuine alternative to Raid. I want Delves to be a genuine alternative to heroic raids and heroic level Mythic Plus. I want them to be a genuine alternative. My argument, which started all of this, is if they have a separate track on the in the Great Vault to Mythic Plus, I don't think they become an alternative to Mythic Plus. I think they become, for many players, I think they become another mandatory feature. A squeeb is apparently a cuttlefish in Scottish. I did not invent that word. What a shame. I thought I did. And that's basically where this argument, where this discussion started, is, you know, I genuinely want Delves to be an alternative to heroic level Mythic Plus and Raid, but I get the sense that if it has its own track in the Vault, it will not be an alternative, it will be an other. It's not mandatory content. Again, that sounds like someone that hasn't really met a WoW player before. Obviously, nothing is actually mandatory, but, I mean, to a lot of players it is. And you don't make the game better by ignoring that mindset. You can't just pretend that that's not true and act like it's not true and expect the game to be better. You have to accept that that is a mindset that a lot of players have. You're not going to make the game better by ignoring that. You're not going to like make the game better by pretending it doesn't happen like that. Like, you're not going to make roads safer by pretending that people don't speed.